Now this old man knows this about this kid and says, wash toilets. I couldn't do it. And I don't think anyone in this class would be able to do it. How could you lower yourself to such an extent? You know? And he does. He washes toilets for about 2 years. You know, and this is the Middle East. You know, this is your house. The toilet is in your backyard. And we don't have backyards, you have front yards. And it's dark. There is no electricity. And what you have as toilets is someone comes, they dig a huge hole in the ground. You know, they put 2x6s, and you just stand, and you go like this, and you just dump. Nothing to flush. And then if you're lucky, you know, you call someone, you go somewhere, find someone who can come with a bulldozer, if there is some in your country, they can come and dig up all the crap, remove it, and then the thing starts again. Okay. So when I talk about toilets, you know, don't think like you can go to Costco and grab scrubbers and then go to the toilet bowl that like you have at the house and just clean it. It doesn't work that way. And when the 2 years are over, this young kid goes to this man and says, I'm ready. I'm done. Oh, okay, good. Well, why don't you now go to the kitchen and wash the floors? Long story short, from the floors, then he goes to wash the dishes, then he pours tea for the people in the lecture hall, then he takes the tea and offers it to the people who are sitting and listening, and then he's finally admitted to the lecture hall, but he has to sit way in the back where he can't hear anything because there are no microphones way back then, and then he's allowed to sit in the middle, then ultimately in the front. Then, now remember, you're not going to do any of this stuff if there is no hope inside you. You're not going to do any of this stuff if you don't have faith in your teacher or yourself that eventually you will get to the main hall. So the driving force of all human activities, hope and faith. Lose them. And then like Rumi, you will say, "Ro sar beneh be balin tanha mara raha kon." You know, my father-in-law had stage 4 cancer. And it's a funny thing, at a certain point when he just couldn't do anything anymore, he couldn't clean himself, he couldn't eat. One day we decided to take him around the lake in a wheelchair. You know, it's a strange thing. You take your body from here to there. You don't even think about it. At a certain point, as Freud would say, your body betrays you. You know, you can no longer do anything. And you feel so powerless. And when we took him around the lake, he was so upset. He wanted to walk, but he couldn't. He used to take a jog around the lake every day, but he couldn't anymore. He wanted to eat, he wanted to talk, he wanted to laugh. None of those things are possible. He had lost faith, he had lost hope. And when ultimately we took him back home, he pushed all of us out. And you know, when you have stage 4 cancer, you're in pain all the time, and you need help. But he didn't want to see any of us. He wanted to, you know, kind of like dogs. When dogs know that they're living the very last days of their life, they kind of find a corner and they just go sit there. They don't want to talk to anyone. They don't want to be around anyone. And, you know, he wanted to die a very, very alone death. And so this young kid one day goes to the lecture hall and people say, "Who are you?" He says, "I've been here for the past 15 years. What do you mean, who am I? We don't know who you are. Get out." And the teacher had told him that if this kid comes in, just beat him up. And he gets beaten up. But his teacher recognizes him. He still has faith and hope in him. And there comes a point where the teacher says to him, "I have no idea who you are." Okay. 2 years of toilet cleaning, 2 years of kitchen, washing dishes, serving tea, sitting at the end of the hall, middle of the hall, beginning, near the hall, where the teacher is. Being friends with people, being friends with the teacher, they're all destroyed. Then the teacher goes to the people of the town and say, when this guy comes to sell you baskets, don't buy anything from him. In fact, tell him you guys don't recognize him. So what you have is a teacher who knows the function of hope, who knows the function of faith, who also knows at what stage hope and faith need to be destroyed. And the kid ultimately, out of desperation, goes to the cemetery. Goes to the cemetery because he is a living dead. Okay, the only people who can perhaps recognize him are the dead. And there he prays, and then out of exhaustion, he just falls asleep. And he has a dream. And it's a very illuminating, enlightening dream. And he wakes up, he's calm, he's at peace. The teacher knows exactly what's happening. You know, he and his disciples walk to the cemetery, and this kid asks him, why did you do all of this? He says, your past was an obstacle. I had to get rid of it. You thought that just because you do the bathroom, just because you do the kitchen, just because you're done with a task, you can be admitted to the lecture hall. I had to destroy all those hopes and faith. Then you thought you had friends. I had to get rid of that. You thought you had a teacher you could depend on. I had to get rid of that. And then ultimately you came to the city of the dead, the cemetery. And the only person you could reach is God. And it doesn't matter if you're an atheist or a religionist. At a certain point, something about you calls out towards something. It doesn't matter what it is, what name you want to give it. Once you have lost hope and faith in everything about yourself and the people around you and physical life, then maybe something magical can take place inside you. So I suppose another answer to your question is, you can have faith and hope in your physical body. You can have faith and hope in your emotional body. You can have faith and hope in your psychological body. And by psychological, I mean, it's a storehouse of belief systems, experiences accumulated over the years. It could also be a trauma that lives inside you. And the word psychology is psyche, it's like soul. You know, if you've had a traumatic experience, it leaks everywhere. You know, it contaminates your thinking, your body, everything. And you can also have hope in your spiritual faith in your spiritual bodies. I just don't know what the spiritual body, hope, and faith look like. You know, what this particular story talks about, though, is that if you have hope and faith in your body, it will crumble. If you have hope and faith in other people, because human beings, for the most part, are confused. We are born confused, and we're going to live out our lives confused. We're going to live with a bucket of assumptions. And eventually, life is going to tell us that those assumptions are very, very, very wrong. Okay? And the sort of emotions that we have, they're quite flimsy. You know, you love today, you hate tomorrow, you're indifferent day after. You trust today, then you doubt. You know. So there is nothing that you can really depend on down here. Your hopes and your faiths will continuously be resurrected, born resurrected, crucified, and that's how things work. The only thing that remains true, perhaps, is, you know, the teachings of the great sages of humanity. Maybe life is bad, as the Buddha said. Maybe there is nothing worth doing down here, as Socrates and Plato argued. I don't know. But I think as long as you haven't reached, if you want to call it spiritual maturity, you should keep hope and faith alive within the context of your physical life, your emotional life, and your intellectual life. Go to school because you hope and you have faith in your own capacity to understand things. Fall in love many times and have faith and have hope in your capacity to be able to love and to recover just in case bad things happen. Continue jogging and being on a good diet. Have faith that your body will not all of a sudden one day wake up and tell you, I have cancer or something. There is nothing wrong with any of that. It gives you purpose and meaning and value. It's great. You know. I have children. I'm not going to go home hoping that my kids are going to sit down and say, "So Dad, tell me about Socrates." That's not my hope. I don't have faith in my kids like that. And I don't have hope or faith that I'll live long enough to see my kids one day coming to me saying, "So Dad, tell me a story from the dialogues." They don't exist for me. Is it sad? Yeah, to some extent. Is it also very liberating? Yeah. Because I'm not going to expect things that they can't deliver. Imagine for a moment that I was attracted to you and you were attracted to me. Imagine. I'm going to tell you straight up, Kendra, you're 30, I'm 60. How many more good years do you think I have? Now, love creates this intoxication. And you know, like when you sit behind the wheel of your car when you're like drunk and you think that you can drive when you can't even see like 2 inches in front of you? Okay. Now, the flaw with us, and especially in this culture, is that you make huge life-changing decisions when you're like in love, which is really quite stupid. Okay. Now, you may be in love with me and I may be in love with you. But because I'm a little older, perhaps a bit more seasoned in some ways, and in some ways you're much more seasoned than I am, I'm going to tell you, listen, I got maybe 5, maybe 6 more good years to live. You know, do you really want to spend the rest of your life taking care of an old man with whom you will have little to no commonality? Why don't you go back in the world, find someone your own age? It doesn't mean I don't love you. But I want to bring you some clarity, and it's going to be profoundly painful. I can give you stability, but only for 5 years, maybe even less. Now, you'll be very lucky if I just sleep and never wake up. If, on the other hand, I get sick little by little, and I got to be on machines for the next 15 years, you know what's going to happen to your spirit? I'm giving you an option, a way out. That there is no hope in this relationship. You can enjoy it, but while you are with me, keep your eyes open for other customers. Should anyone out there be interested in you, and they happen to be your own age, go with them. Now, is there a chance I may live to be a healthy life till I'm 155? Maybe. Is there a possibility that the 40-year-old guy you go out with may ultimately get cancer, and then you have to take care of him? Maybe. But we're talking about chances, probabilities. There's a good chance I will get sick. A good chance, 85%. A 40-year-old, 20%. You need to take the 20%. And that's how things are. Hope, faith. You guys are so depressing. It can't be me. Jalua.
We talk about judgments.
Judgments. Let me start by revealing something very personal. Is that okay? It's something I may be wrong about this. I haven't yet proven to be wrong, but I still have time to be proven wrong. As far back as I can remember, where I am sitting right now at my age, 60, so often I have seen other people do something, and then I've reached a conclusion, and the conclusion has been negative. And then at a certain point, I realize that I have done the same exact thing. And then I catch myself. But then I go back and ask myself, why did I do such a thing? And when I begin to observe the components or elements or forces that drove me into doing something and then catching myself, then I'm able to put myself in the other person's shoes and then understand why he did what he did, or she. And the point I'm trying to make is whatever you make a judgment on, you will eventually have to experience it. And you will eventually be pushed into observing the anatomy of that particular experience. And then you will be forced to understand it. And then that's how the universe balances itself out. Okay? And so the idea that you have in the New Testament that you shouldn't judge because you will be judged by the thing you've judged, it's something that was talked about some 2,000 years ago. And I don't know if Jesus actually took this from some guy, or maybe he reached a conclusion himself. It takes you such a long time to understand the wisdom of that seemingly simple verse or saying, that it doesn't matter what you judge. You know, let's just say you come to class and you look at me and say, this guy's an idiot. I will assure you, at a certain point in your life, you will have to give a talk. Whether to your son, to your daughter, to your parents, to your friends, and then you will realize they're not listening to you. And then you say, oh, I didn't listen to that guy when I took his class, so this is how it feels, huh? What crummy friends do I have? The way I say, what crummy students do I have? Okay? So that's one of the things about the mysterious part of judgments. You will eventually have to experience it to understand it. There is another thing about judgment, which is the following. You will get such a tremendous sense of power when you make a judgment on something. Imagine the first day you come to this class, you look at me and you say, an idiot. He doesn't speak English the right way. He comes to class with no notes. There is no structure to this class. And within a few minutes, you have an introduction to your judgment. You have the body, and then you have the last chapter, all within 5 minutes. How old are you? 20. How old am I? 60. Now, for your judgment to be sound, that if your judgment is going to have clear concepts that you understand, before you make that judgment, you come to me and you say, so Amir, tell me, why do you not have lecture notes? Why do you come to class winging it? What is your culture? What is your tradition? And what you do is you suspend your judgment. You remove the power from yourself. And you come to me and you ask me, why the hell are you the way you are? And then you and I sit and have a conversation. Now, when you go back home, you need to have a nice processing system. Can you process, chew, take apart all the things I've told you? Do you have eyes that can see, can hear all the things I've said to you so you can understand it, put in the right order, and then come to a conclusion? What's that guy's name? the comedian, Russell something.
Rachel.
Russell Brand. He's on the news quite a bit the past couple of days. You guys have heard the story, right? Okay. So he's some comedian. Some people have come accusing him of ABCD. It's easy to make a judgment. Before you talk about Russell Brand or anyone who's committed any alleged things, what does it mean to be human? We are enormously weak. Enormously. You know, an elephant, when her baby comes out, a minute later she walks. A tiny little chick in the nest, on top of a branch somewhere, a week later she can fly. You know, all the living organisms you see out there, within a couple of minutes, they know exactly what to do with life. They function instinctually and organically. Look at us. First, you have to be nursed for about 2 years because you're far too incompetent. Then you have to be taught how to walk, how to ride a bicycle, how to speak, how to eat, where to go to eat. Then you have to be taught who your friends should be, where you should go, what you should do, who you should marry. And at the end, you realize every goddamn thing you've done is wrong. So that's the first thing you need to understand about this man, or any woman. Out of the confusion that all human beings suffer from, one of the ways that you remove confusion, and confusion puts you in a very weak position in life. Not only is your self-confidence near zero, other people don't like you either. So what do? Well, you drink it away. You smoke it away. The way you escape loneliness by having sex. The way you escape maybe time management skills or incompetence by plagiarism. And before you know it, you have a man who escapes from being confused. All of a sudden, you find himself becoming an addict. How do you do with all of that? Now, first you're confused, you have zero self-confidence, then you're an addict. All melancholic men have the best senses of humor. If you're an introvert, if you're a sad, sorrowful, depressed human being, your mask is humor. Not because you're funny, but because you're sad. Sarcasm. That's who he is. And people begin to like it. A man who was weak for many, many, many years now has access to power. Oprah Winfrey had a show some years ago. There was this very rich, powerful actor in New York. Once in a while, he would stand by the window on the 7th floor, and he would watch the same homeless man going to this trash bin, looking into these brown bags, picking food, and then eating. And he knew exactly what time this homeless man would go or come to the trash bin. So one day he goes to the bank and he withdraws $100,000 and he puts it into this brown bag. And this homeless man goes, as usual, and he looks into this bag and there's all this cash. If you haven't been educated as to how you should spend your money, like the prodigal son story in the Gospel of Matthew or Luke, well, what are you going to do? He takes himself to fancy restaurants, buys himself a boat or a this or a that. And money is like sand, you know, it slips through your fingers very quickly. At a certain point, he comes to realize he has no money left. And he didn't buy a home. It was a social experiment. Eventually, the old man comes on the show, I guess. Maybe I'm just making things up, I don't remember. And what the old man says to people is that I hate the person who put the money in the bag. Because my taste buds were accustomed to just eating bread and water. Now, the money made my taste buds experience pizza, spaghetti. My taste buds are now contaminated. I have this memory of pizza. I can't go back to just eating dry bread. I had money. I rented a room. I took a shower. I smelled good. I'm homeless now. I smell bad. I can't stand myself. Before I could stand myself being homeless. That was my life. But now I'm in purgatory. I have a memory of being homeless, memory of being rich, and now I'm in the middle. I can't go back to being homeless, and I can't be rich. What the hell do I do now? So now you have a man who has a tremendous amount of power. Don't you want to be around people who are powerful? If Einstein came your way, you wouldn't want to be around him? If Brad Pitt was to walk in this class, you wouldn't want to be around him? Or whoever you idolize? They did this experiment some years ago with 4 elephants. 3 of them were given just clear water, buckets to drink from. One, the bucket was clear and it had, the color of this water was orange. And all these other elephants, the 3 elephants, kept looking at this other elephant. Why is his water orange? What's so special about him? They stopped drinking their own water. Because they realized there is something majestic, magnificent, beautiful about the pink water. And this elephant, who has the privilege of drinking pink water. We like power. We like to be around those who have power. That's why I always say, when you read the story of Malcolm X, the story of James Baldwin, that despite being given all that power, they had the humility to walk away from it because they were earnest seekers, students. There was a story about, I think Cristiano Ronaldo, he's a soccer player. Do you guys know who he is? I just told you, he's a soccer player. And he's great. I mean, have you guys seen him only with his shorts on? He's like this great body. Every time I see him naked, I envy him. And I remove my own clothes and I say, oh my God, I look horrible. I want to be like him. Some years ago, I think he was in the U.S., and this woman was in this hotel. He looks at this woman and says, I have a jacuzzi upstairs. You want to come into the hot tub with me? What, does this woman think, Cristiano Ronaldo is a Jesus Christ? Like he's a Socrates? He's there to just have a conversation about the meaning of life? So they go to the hot tub. A few years later, she comes out saying, oh, he did ABCD to me. And that's the point. People want to hang out with those who have power. It doesn't matter what kind of power, physical power, emotional power, spiritual power. That's how we function. And the point I'm trying to make is to make a judgment on anything. Once you begin to kind of exercise some honesty, you realize how difficult life is. Not only is Brand a victim of life and addiction and power, intoxication, and being labeled a celebrity, but also being a prisoner to his past, and being a prisoner of ignorance. But it does give us a great amount of power, doesn't it? Hitler, another great example. And even this class, artists. Imagine if you showed your artwork that you worked on every single day. And then you show it to your father after 5 weeks of locking yourself in the room. Say, Dad, here's what I've been working on. And he slaps you really hard. And he says, it sucks. What is that going to do to your spirit? You say, well, screw my dad, I'm going to show it to my mom. You spend another month in your room and then you show it to your mom and your mom says, oh, honey, that sucks. And then you go to drink milk, you open the fridge door, your mom says, the hell are you doing? It's my fridge! And belts you. And little by little, that creative spirit is destroyed inside you. Yeah.
Most times necessary.
I'm sorry?
But I guess those kind of situations are almost necessary to create spiritual strength.
Well, they may be. I mean, sure they are. It depends what kind of a person you are, where you are in life, how mature your understanding is. When it came to Hitler, for example, he worked for the government. He was to be a spy and go to this underground movement to see what people are talking about. Are they communists? What exactly are they? And then, in fact, enjoyed what he was hearing so much that he quit being a spy and he joined the organization. And there came a point where we began to have conversation with other people, and other people recognized that this guy is talented, he's very insightful. And so, as time passed, Hitler was chosen to be the spokesperson for the committee. And what he began to realize was that when he goes and talks to people applaud him for like 5 hours. He has the power to inspire. Do you know what happens when you start poor, like Hitler, get punished on a daily basis, and all of a sudden you are idolized, you're worshipped by people? What's that going to do to your spirit? You're going to create World War II. You're going to have specific ideas about beauty, eugenics. What kind of people are good? What kind of people are bad? All of a sudden life becomes like a cult. Who is allowed to live and who should die? That's what happens to all people who have power. But you need to be broken in the right way. And if you're broken in the right way, even if you have power, you can walk away from it. But you got to be broken. Yes?
So Hitler was broken in a different way. Maybe not been rejected from art school. Maybe just
I think if anyone, if anyone is broken in the right way, yeah. I was going to talk about the 3 temptations given to the Buddha, but because he was broken in the right way, he didn't fall victim to them. Anyways, listen, it's good to see all of you. I'm sorry that you had to endure another day of misery in this class. Take good care. Stay well. Tell your parents I said hello. See you next week. Stay in touch.
Is there a specific brand of coffee to bring over to your office? Charles going to turn in a first assignment in 3 questions, like, should at least be some coffee.
No coffee.
Okay.
Just give me the questions, it's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Louis.
Yeah, no problem.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Josephine couldn't make it today.
How do you know? Texted you. Are you guys cousins? Okay. Tell her I said hi. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Kendra. How are you? You okay?